What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name is Stephen Wright. I am joined by Will, the Thrill Monroe. How you doing, Will?
Hey, doing well, Steve. Just got back from the beach this past weekend, so exhausted, but very fun weekend nonetheless.
Yeah, there's something about just being out in the sun that just sucks the life out of you, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. It's good, but yes, the sun definitely drains you, especially if you're running around on the beach and in the ocean. The ocean takes it out of you too, swimming.
Yeah, it's getting beaten up by the waves and all that stuff. Yeah, Yeah. It seems like such a leisurely thing, but it's really not. It wears you out, man.
Yeah, it sure does.
And then we were saying pre-show, it's been a busy week. We got the Hopkins landing in Tennessee. We got a bunch of the franchise tag running backs not signing long-term deals. I haven't heard, I know Saquon is planning on holding out through training camp. Have you heard about Jacobs or Pollard?
I think the expectation is most of them are not gonna camp. But I haven't heard anything specific, reports from their camps. I've seen Schefter and some people tweeting that seems like they're just not going to report to camp.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So we'll see how that impacts ADP over time. If people get scared of a Saquon doing a holdout, like a Melvin Gordon pushing the season kind of deal, or if everything just stays the same. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think a lot of times there may be a little bit of added injury risk. The conditioning maybe isn't there like it would be if you were in training camp, but I think for the most part, it really just gives you a little bit of a depreciated, kind of ADP. So you might be able to get a player a little lower than they should be for kind of the risk that they pull a Le'Veon Bell. But I think you and I both said we don't really see that happening, especially based on what happened to Le'Veon Bell. Not really getting the contract he was looking for after holding out. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, well. So we'll see over time as how that impacts the ADPs. But for this point in time, we're doing a Superflex mock draft. First one of the year, I think.
Sure are.
Right? We haven't done one yet, right?
Not that I can think of this offseason, no.
Yeah, I think this will be our first one. So yeah, we got a 10-team Superflex. I'm already happy looking at the ADPs. Will's in the 7.
Yeah,
I'm in the 8.
We're saying full PPR for this one, right?
Yeah, full PPR. So I'm happy because I'm in the 8, and the worst player on the 8 ADP is Christian McCaffrey. So
yeah, it's kind of crazy to see all that.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that. But yeah, always interesting because you got different strategies, whether you want to go 2 quarterbacks early, 1 mid, 2 mids, 1 early, 1 late. So I guess we'll see how things fall. I'm assuming you're not going into it with any specific strategy.
I feel like I like to get a quarterback in the first 2 picks just to get one, and then your other second quarterback can be kind of the late quarterback strategy. But really, other than that, there's some, like you said, some really good players that are probably going to fall. So I think it just depends on how many quarterbacks go in those top few.
Yeah, fair. Well, are you ready to get it started and see how many of those quarterbacks go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Let's hit that start button. We will see. They are going off the board. Wow, Burrow at the 102.
Flying.
Yeah, so we started with Patrick Mahomes at the 101. Not a big surprise there. Joe Burrow, 102. I think that's a bit of a surprise. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Justin Jefferson, and then Travis Kelce still maintains his spot around the 105, 106.
How
despite being
it?
Superflex. Yeah, wild.
Yeah, this is interesting because you still have a couple of quarterbacks in Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, probably kind of the end of that tier. But then you have big time players like McCaffrey and Jamar Chase, both still on the board here as well. So it's, do you roll a gamble of, taking one of those two and McCaffrey and Chase and hoping that one of those 4 quarterbacks gets back with 6 picks to go? Or, do you lock in a quarterback and just kind of get the next best player on the next turn? If I was going to go quarterback, it would be Lamar. I think, there's somebody that had kind of that suppressed value for a bit with all the uncertainty in the contract. But now that he got paid, I think, he's kind of locked back in there, as that 5th, 6th guy there with Herbert. So I wouldn't hate it either way, but I don't think either of them get back. So think, I'll take the quarterback here. I'd be more than okay with a Cooper Cup or an Austin Eckler in the next round. Obviously, a little bit lower than a McCaffrey and Chase, but just guarantee I'm getting one of those top quarterbacks, in Superflex. As I said, I like to try to get one, a top quarter, get at least a top tier quarterback, and I just don't know that I can guarantee that in the second round. So with the amount going, I'm going to go ahead and grab Mr. Lamar Jackson.
This one is it's a tough decision. I really didn't think I figured I'd just have like one option, but now I'm staring at two because the Kelsey jump. So now, I wouldn't. Part of me wants to take Justin Herbert and then see if Fields gets back to me, and then doubling up the first 2 picks quarterback just to see what that looks like. But Fields might not be great, and that could be a problem for you draft a quarterback that early.
Yeah.
I could go McCaffrey here and then roll the dice on like a Fields or a Lawrence as my one. Like that could be a big win. And then you
do either the teams behind you double up a quarterback, or if they just take one, you should be okay.
Yeah. If you're comfortable with Lawrence, then you're good. So I think I will play that game as much as I kind of want to do 2 quarterbacks, because Herbert and Fields would be a pretty crazy combo to be going into a super flex league with. I'm going to play the game. I'm going to grab Christian McCaffrey. Always nice to grab him in the back of the first round, getting the top.
Yeah, he would have been who I would have went with had I waited.
Wow, check it out. Only 1 quarterback goes. So we had Justin Herbert and Chase goes. That rounds out the first round. And then in the second round, we got Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs. So very interesting. That does give me Fields. Like, I think I still like Fields over Lawrence. Not that I don't think Lawrence has real high upside, but I think Fields has that, elite Lamar Jackson, number 1 overall crazy rushing upside to him. That Lawrence doesn't have. Lawrence can be more touchdown dependent to some degree. Not that he doesn't rush, but he doesn't rush to the degree of Justin Fields. So I'm going to lock him in. I am nervous with him as my one. But his upside is tremendous. So I'm going to go ahead and lock him in here. I know you like Trevor Lawrence, so maybe you will take the 2 quarterbacks and 2 round strategy here.
Yeah, it is tempting. Definitely tempting. Lawrence, I think, is kind of the end of that tier. But there's still some top tier guys. Cooper Kupp still here. Austin Eckler, I think, is going to be tough for me to pass up. I think he is, especially in a full PPR, pretty locked in as the number 2 quarterback or number 2 running back. To get him this late, the 14th pick, is just hard to pass up, especially with running backs. Just there is scarcity there. You don't have many that are going to get everything like him. So going to go ahead and lock in Austin Eckler here. We'll see what gets back. I obviously don't anticipate Trevor getting back, as there he is. So Saquon goes after. I take Eckler, Cooper Kupp, Trevor Lawrence, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, and A.J. Brown to round out the second round. CeeDee Lamb next. Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, Mark Andrews, Dak Prescott, and Team 6, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Team 6 goes 3 straight rounds without a quarterback. And then on the flip side, 2 teams there, Team 2 and Team 4, both have taken their second quarterbacks already. So interesting to see how the teams are built here. So as we look beyond, top of the board here, quarterbacks, Tua Tagovailoa, got Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones. Tua is interesting, but not someone that I want to take over some of the receivers and running backs here. At tight end, Hawkinson, Kittle, Pitts. Not interested there either. I'd be looking at receivers. Got quite a few solid options. Devontae Adams is still here. Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave. And then running back, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall, Roger Stevenson. At this point, it's tough because I love Garrett Wilson, but there is a few receivers that I think are really good. While there's really just Derrick Henry is just really interesting here in the third round. I know that there's some uncertainty, but as they sign DeAndre Hopkins, it seems maybe a little less likely that they are, have a potential of rebuilding in this season. You don't see that often in football, but there have been talks that, if they start off slow, you move on to the trade Henry, move on to, the backup quarterback, or maybe even worse for Henry, you don't trade him and you still move to the backup quarterback. But regardless, I think they are going to tender and be able to get Derrick Henry. It's PPR, so it hurts him a little bit, but to get him and pair him with Austin Eckler and Lamar Jackson, there's still quite a few receivers that I wouldn't mind getting as my number one here. But to have a quarterback and 2 top-tier running backs already is hard to pass up. So I'm going to go ahead and grab Derrick Henry. I don't think I've taken him anywhere just yet in the in mock season, but with Superflex, it definitely changes things up.
Yeah, that would have been my pick. So good move.
Henry and McCaffrey is probably about the only combo that I would have liked better than Henry.
Yeah, for real. I'm kind of in a similar position to you. I don't like any of the tight ends. I do like Tua. I think there's a lot of upside to Tua. I think going through the offseason and staying injury free throughout the offseason might do him some good going into next year. But there's a tremendous risk with him, right? Like one head injury, you get one sack where you bang your head on the ground, and what then? He gets another concussion. What then? Does he come back? Does he say enough's enough? Like it's very worrisome, but the upside's really high. So part of me wants to draft Tua, and then on the next turn, grab Jalen Waddle and pair them together. That would be interesting. But I find it difficult to do that when you have Devontae Adams, when you have Garrett Wilson here. I'll throw Josh Jacobs into that mix. Olave, like there's a lot of good options here. So I find it hard to do that, but I kind of want to. Like I see it as a league winning decision. If Tua is healthy all year and reaches close to the heights that he was reaching last year before his injury, pairing him with Waddle as my quarterback 2 is huge. Like that's a really big deal. Then you got Devontae Adams. He's got a new quarterback, Jimmy G. Jimmy G supported some good wide receivers before, but they were Debo and Ayuk doing a lot of creative scheming and, running after the cat, like a lot of different things than what I think Adams would be doing. Garrett Wilson, I know we're all high on, but there's a lot of history of quarterbacks going to new teams and it's just taking some time for the wide receivers to get acclimated. So like his ascension isn't guaranteed. Not that I wouldn't draft him here because I would probably draft him over Williams, but I'm crafting the narrative. So I think I am going to try my stack idea. I think I could get away with it. Team 10 doesn't have any quarterbacks, so I don't think Tua would get back to me. But I think Waddle can. So I'm going to try to execute on that, and we're going to see what happens. So Tua is locked in. And Team 4 burned me. It did not work. I'm going to get none of the players I wanted. Okay. So after my pick went Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. That rounds out the 3rd round. And to start the 4th, stupid Team 10 went with Jalen Waddle and Devontae Adams, despite having Tyreek Hill. So thank you. You're in a Superflex league with no quarterbacks. You have a long wait, and you have 2 wide receivers on the same team. I hope that works out for you.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I hate them. Okay, so that's fine, though. Like, it is what it is. Running backs, we still got Josh Jacobs, we got Stevenson, we got Pollard, we got Najee. Wide receivers, we got Olave, we got T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, Metcalf. We're in a iffy kind of situation. I think if I was in a real draft, I'd go running back, and I would go Jacob Stevenson or Pollard. But since you went 2 running backs, I think I'm going to do something different and go running back wide receiver and just jump on the Chris Olave hype train. We're both high on him. A lot of people are high on him. Falls in that same kind of story of, Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams, new quarterbacks, could cause some trouble. But I just said I liked them. I was just crafting a narrative, and I like Olave. So we're going to lock him in there as my wide receiver 1, and we're going to hand things off to you.
Yeah, so it takes most of the receivers I was hoping would get back. Olave, Waddle, Wilson. So it was a good pick there. So at this point, T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, both good options. DK Metcalf would be someone I'd even consider there. But there's still some top tier running backs, as you mentioned, and I think that this could be a situation where I just try to load up on a position, since we can start 3 of them, and we're only starting 2 receivers. I think getting that running back position is going to be key. It just stinks that the 2 guys that I like are guys that are holding out, as we talked about, Josh Jacobs and Tony Pollard. So as I look at the 2, it's interesting. I think most people probably would go Jacobs, but I think it's closer than people, let on. Jacobs obviously was a monster last year, but Pollard, now that he has the whole backfield, still waiting to see if Dallas signs somebody else, but it sure looks like it's going to be him. So I think it's closer than people think. I still, at this point, I think I'm still going to go Jacobs. I think it's a safer one. Obviously, both of them are risky with the holdout, but I'm going to go ahead and as you, Bob, I'm going to go with a third running back here in Josh Jacobs. So getting the flex locked in, but having Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, and Josh Jacobs is a pretty formidable lineup there. And we'll see what kind of quarterbacks and receivers get back here. So we had a couple quarterbacks run there as well. So after I take Jacobs, Kirk Cousins goes, Najee Harris, Devonta Smith, T. Higgins, and DK Metcalf. Then Ramondre Stevenson and Tony Pollard at the turn. T.J. Hawkinson, Aaron Rodgers, Keenan Allen, Geno Smith, and Daniel Jones. So not needing a running back, but there are still some options here. I'm sure you'll be considering with Etienne, Gibbs, and Walker. At receiver, Deebo Samuel, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley. So still some solid options at receiver. And then, some solid ones lower down as well. Still have a George Kittle, Kyle Pitts, Dallas Goedert. So a lot of options there. Quarterback, Anthony Richardson, Jared Goff, Russell Wilson, Derek Carr. Had one of the quarterbacks there with like a Rodgers, Geno, Daniel Jones, maybe considering. Anthony Richardson is in consideration, but I just don't think I can pull the trigger. I think there's solid options that I can get a little later. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of my receivers here. So looking at a couple of options here, Deebo's on the board, Calvin Ridley. Yeah, as crazy as it sounds, I feel like Amari Cooper might be the safest of the bunch here. It feels like a lot of the community is kind of down on Deebo, right? I mean, he had his monster season 2 years ago and a little bit of injury last year, but he was down at wide receiver 40 in PPR last year. What do you make of that, Steve, as a resident 49ers expert? Is he bouncing back? Is this more of a breakout year for Ayuk? What's the outlook for Deebo?
I don't really know. He's still holding on to that high ADP based on the crazy high year, and I don't think he gets back to that. I still think I think Deebo is going to be the one that ends up scoring the most, but I don't think it's going to be a big enough gap to justify the ADP gap. Like I'd rather wait. I don't know the ADP. I'd rather wait 4 rounds, 3 rounds, whatever it is, and get Ayuk than grab Deebo early.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, he's going to get a good rushing baseline, I'm sure, too. But I think if I'm going receiver, I want to get a guy that, has a bigger stranglehold on the number one receiver on his team. I think Calvin Ridley could be that. I think that's where he's being drafted, but there's still a little uncertainty there. While there, I think, is, nice competition for wide receiver 2 in Cleveland, but Amari sure looks like he is still going to be the guy. So I'm going to go ahead and lock him in. PPR or wide receiver 10 in PPR last year, despite having, backup quarterbacks and then a, rusty Deshaun Watson. So obviously a gamble with the quarterback there, but to get him as my wide receiver 1 with 3 running backs and a quarterback already on the roster, pretty happy with that. So locking in Amari Cooper and it is your turn with some running backs on the board, if that's what you're looking at.
It is. I was thrilled to see the quarterbacks go and get to your pick, and I knew you weren't going to grab another running back. And I was like, well, I like Etienne. I like Gibbs. I'm good with Walker. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
am happy. Um, I have to strike a running back now because, of the two teams next to me, they've made eight picks, and only one of them's a running back. So I think a running back will go, although you could make a case for three of the four picks being quarterbacks too, because they're light on quarterback. So good position to be in. ETN is the one I'm going to lock in. Ascending offense, ascending quarterback, looked good last year. I love Gibbs. Like, I want to pull the trigger on Gibbs here too, but ETN seems pretty similar to me, but with a team I trust a bit more. So I'm going to lock him in, and maybe wonderful if Gibbs got back to me and they did some funky stuff, but we'll see. We'll lock him in there. Jared Goff goes. Anthony Richards goes. Oh, man. Oh, wow. Okay. So Goff and Anthony Richardson ran out the fifth, and then Debo and Drake London go with the next two picks. So I am here. Jahmyr Gibbs is still here. Kenneth Walker's still here. So I am quite happy with this. My only worry is waiting this long to get another wide receiver, but it's going to be easier for me to grab wide receivers late than running backs. So I'm going to lock in Jahmyr Gibbs. I get three, strong pass catching running backs in CMC, ETN, and Gibbs. Gibbs needs an abbreviation for his name. But yeah, I'm suddenly happy with how this team is shaping up. I'll be curious to see what happens in the wide receiver position by the time my next pick rolls around. But I'm going to lock him in. Jahmyr Gibbs, I am adding to this team. So I am up to three running backs as well.
So I am in an interesting situation because there's a couple of skill players that I still like. Calvin Ridley's still here. He was someone that I think kind of has that top tier. And given that I've got Amari here as baseline, I think Calvin Ridley, pretty solid upside shot. But there still is some solid guys behind him. Tight end, there's still some good options with Kittle, Pitts, Goddard. And then quarterback, there's two guys, Russell Wilson and Derek Carr, that I think would be really good options to draft here. And it kind of drops off after that. So looking at the teams behind me, only one team does not have a second quarterback. But I don't know that I want to gamble there. And I don't think that I'm, there's still three tight ends in Kittle, Pitts, and Goddard that I like. And there's three teams that don't have a tight end. So need just one of them to get past, and they'd be more luxury. There's still good guys there. So I don't think I can go with the tight end just yet. But there's still some solid receivers that I like below. As you mentioned, Brandon Ayuk's a little further down there, Godwin, Christian Watson, DJ Moore, Judy. So still solid options at the wide receiver. So I think I'm going to strike here at the quarterback position, and we will have the same build. And we got there differently, but we'll have the same build of our team here. And I'm going to go with Derek Carr. I know Russell Wilson's probably the hotter option, but maybe not. We'll see. But I think Derek Carr is a good quarterback, and he's going to have, at the very least, a very good receiver in Chris Olave. Could have a healthy Michael Thomas. We will see. The running back core, have had some pass catching chops there. If Kamara is playing, we'll see. So I'm going to go Derek Carr. I think he is a good QB2 to get at this stage. So after Carr, we've got Calvin Ridley, Joe Mixon, Kenneth Walker, Kittle, Terry McLaurin, Kyle Pitts. Russell Wilson goes, so one of those two was going to go. So it's good to see I was able to get Derek Carr. Aaron Jones, Michael Pittman, DeAndre Hopkins, Jerry Jeudy, and Christian Watson. So I've got my second quarterback. I probably won't draft another one, maybe late in the draft, but at this stage, I'm pretty okay. Looking at running backs, J.K. Dobbins is still here. Interesting things here in seventh round of a Superflex draft. You're going to have some guys fall. Damian Pierce, Miles Sanders. So some interesting options at running back. At wide receiver, DJ Moore, Chris Godwin, Brandon Ayuk, all solid options that I like here. And then at tight end, Dallas Goedert, I think, is kind of the end of a tier there. So he is interesting, looking at the teams behind. I mean, you've only got one receiver, so you're probably going to go with one or two. But the other teams all have four. So I think, given that there's a few receivers that I like, I can probably hold off and end up with DJ Moore, Godwin, or Ayuk. Christian Kirk maybe as kind of like a fallback. So I can go ahead and grab a tight end that I think has that top 5 upside in the Philadelphia Eagles offense in Dallas Goedert. So I'm going to lock in Goddard here, and we will see what gets back to me at receiver here. Are you looking to double up at receiver? Was Goddard an option for you? What are you thinking here, Steve?
I was planning on doing literally the same thing you did. I was like, well, I could draft Goddard and wide receivers aren't going to go. I was actually probably going to draft DJ Moore, who I don't really draft anywhere, but it would give me this stack with Fields. Kind of interesting. I feel like I'm forcing the pick because I'm not me and you have always been kind of high on DJ Moore. But for fantasy, he's been kind of inconsistent. We haven't seen what we expected to see out of him. And then going to a new team with a new quarterback, again, for the third time, that's kind of a problem. So I feel like I'd be forcing it to draft him here. But I am going to get 2 tight ends or 2 wide receivers and not drafting a tight end. I'll probably wait on tight end and see if I can grab a Dolchich slate or something like that. But I think initially I'm going to let DJ Moore go, and I'm going to grab Mr. Ayuk, who we mentioned. Where was Debo? Debo was around before, so a full round later right now is the ADP gap, I guess, which I thought was a greater gap than that, but maybe I'm just not paying attention.
Yeah, maybe Debo's fallen.
Yeah.
I feel like Ayuk has been around there, at 78-ish?
Yeah.
Maybe he's rising. Who knows?
Yeah, and it's not like a lot of quarterbacks went between the two to... Did it? Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to lock him in, though. Ayuk, get a part of a good offense there. The Team 9 drafting another wide receiver despite conventional wisdom did draft DJ Moore, so takes that option away from me. Then we had Miles Sanders to round out the 7th. To start the 8th, we have Darren Waller and J.K. Dobbins. So we are back on the clock. I have 2 quarterbacks already. I could look to add a Stafford or Kyler Murray for some upside, but it is kind of thin. At running back, I got 3. We can only start 3, but you had mentioned there's some interesting options here. Pierce is here, Swift, Akers, James Conner, Matson. Decent options there at tight end. Evan Ingram is interesting. Freiermuth is interesting. I mean, Njoku, there's a lot of interesting tight ends here. But I think I'd rather wait on that dart throw on a Chig, a Komet, a Dolchich like that, and just grab up another wide receiver. So taking a look at this grouping, I don't want JSN. I like JSN, but for a rookie, he's in kind of a crowded situation. Mike Williams would have been the auto pick in years past, but I'm kind of just overplaying that game with it.
Yeah.
You got Chris Godwin here. It could be solid. Christian Kirk kind of jumps out. But I think it's going to be Hollywood Brown. Again, I talk about him a lot when we do these mock drafts. I'm grabbing him up. It does worry me if Kyler's out for long term, but he's the guy for that team now. And I think he can deliver. I think he's got higher upside than everyone above him. Maybe not Mike Williams if suddenly in year 6 he turns into what we expected and can stay healthy. But I'm going to lock in Mr. Hollywood, which I'm sure is good with you because I don't think you were targeting him.
He was on the list of receivers that I liked, but he wouldn't have been the top choice. I think Godwin, Kirk, and Williams probably would have been there or higher. I mean, I guess you could make the case for him and Mike Williams. But I think Godwin and Christian Kirk would be the 2 that I'd be looking at here. Godwin, man, his value people always sleep on him, but he's consistently a good wide receiver too. He had one wide receiver 1 year, wide receiver number 2 overall in 2019, but he had an injury year in 2020 where he's 31, but 16 and 19 the previous 2 years. So he's just super consistent, a guy that I think is a really good pick here for this team to get as my second receiver. A lot of really good upside wide receivers that I like going forward, and there's still quite a few running backs available that I like. So I'm going to go ahead and go and grab Mr. Chris Godwin. After Godwin, Dameon Pierce, Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, JSN, and Christian Kirk to end the round. Javonte Williams, James Conner, Mike Williams, Alexander Madison, Traylon Burks, which will be interesting to see how his ADP changes as we get, as we get the baked in DeAndre Hopkins signing there and how that changes his value, and then Isaiah Pacheco last. So at this stage, I've got 2 quarterbacks and a tight end, so pretty set at those positions. And then we've got 3 running backs and 2 wide receivers. So pretty flexible to kind of bounce between those 2 for a while here. Looking at running back first, we've got Rachaad White, who is an interesting option. We've got Alvin Kamara, which I think that one, man, would just be nice if we had some clarity on his suspension. But doesn't look like we're going to get that anytime soon. David Montgomery, James Cook, A.J. Dillon. So Rachaad White, I think, is like the best upside option at running back here, and given that is kind of really where the big value on my team is, he would be a really good investment for this team. At wide receiver, there's still quite a few: Tyler Lockett, Mike Evans, rookie, and Jordan Addison. Deontay Johnson seems like he is just due for positive regression to his wide touchdowns. He was so low last year. Kadarius Toney, George Pickens, Jahan Dotson, Quentin Johnston. So quite a few receivers that I like. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a 4th running back here and look to get a receiver on the comeback here. And I'm going to go with Rachaad White. I like what Rachaad White could be this year. I know that, Bucks aren't a great team, so having 2 Bucks isn't thrilling, but I think they're 2 playmakers that are going to get a lot of usage, and getting them later in the draft here, I think it's fine. And it's really a luxury pick here at running back. So going to go ahead and lock in Rachaad White, and we'll take a look at what wide receivers are there when I get back.
Yeah, back on the clock here. I'm conflicted because I feel like there's a lot of things I could do. Part of me wants to strike first at the backup quarterback position because Kyler Murray is sitting here, which is kind of tempting. But I feel like that's a waste of a pick. At running back, I kind of feel like I could take a luxury pick and grab Kamara here, which would be pretty interesting. At wide receiver, we do have Tyler Lockett, which is super interesting. Mike Williams, always consistent. A lot of people kind of curious what's going to happen this year. We have Jordan Addison, who, me and you like, and I think could be a rookie that produces a lot this year. Mm-hmm. And then at tight end, I'm just going to wait. So I think I'm going to grab 2 more wide receivers. I'm going to try to. I'm going to grab Addison first. We're going to see what gets back to me. Mike Evans goes. Jordan Love goes. That rounds out the 9th. To start the 10th, we got George Pickens and Evan Ingram. So I'm back on the clock. I've seen a name that I kind of passed over, and now is giving me a bit of a pause. I was going to get Dotson, but Deontay Johnson here in the 10th round. A guy
crazy that he's still just falling in drafts.
Yeah, he should not be this low. People have forgotten, what he was for fantasy with Big Ben, and Pickett is going to take a step forward. It's hard not to. So I think that my hesitation, I feel like he should be the pick, but I also don't want to wait this long for another running back because we're going to be looking at that, Penny, Samaje Perine, A-Chain, Damon Harris kind of tier. But I'm going to do it because why not? We're locked him in there. We got Deontay Johnson. Gives me 4, 5 wide receivers. Nice.
Yeah, so still up here. Still just got 2 receivers. So I'm going to look to try to grab a couple here, my next couple picks. Don't need, tight end. Quarterback, I guess you could look at here. We have had, 1 team grab their 3rd quarterback. Oh, he still only has 2. So yeah, not many teams have taken, especially with 10 teams. There's going to be some good ones on the waivers. And running back, Kamara, would be another nice luxury pick here, but there's still some solid ones that I like as kind of more depth pieces in a few rounds. So receiver is going to be the option here. Tyler Lockett's top on the board, and obviously we know what he is. I think he's got a good baseline, but I think JSN is going to eat into that a bit. We saw him, very consistent, 13, 8, 15, 13 in PPR the last 4 years. So it'll probably be around there, but I think it'll probably be a little bit lower with JSN eating into that a little bit more. Whereas I want to look at a guy that has maybe a little bit more of a target share opportunity. Jahan Dotson, obviously, you're projecting a step forward for him, maybe a step backward for Lockett. Quentin Johnston's another interesting option. So the two of those guys, I think there's a good chance that one of them can get back to me here. If I do end up with, going with another safer pick with Lockett. So I'm going to gamble here. I think there's quite a few options in between, and we'll see if I can get a Johnson or Dotson on my next turn. But I'm going to go with the Tyler Lockett. Given that I've waited at receiver a lot, I can take a shot on a guy later, but getting a third just good receiver to kind of plug in with the upside that I have at Lamar, my 3 running backs, and my tight end, I think I can get by with some of these good receivers. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll nab Lockett and we'll see if we can get some non-receivers to go. So Kamara goes next, Pat Freiermuth, David Montgomery, Kadarius Toney. There goes John Dotson, Zach Charbonnet, James Cook, Quentin Johnson. So 2 guys I was looking at went David Njoku, A.J. Dillon, Antonio Gibson, and Brandon Cooks. So it's definitely a time for some of those receivers to go. And still have a lot of quarterbacks that are top of the board that kind of suppresses that since a lot of these teams aren't grabbing a second quarterback. So running backs, still have a Khalil Herbert, Brian Robinson, Rashad Penny. So some solid options at running back. Wide receiver, Gabe Davis. We've got Juju, Michael Thomas, Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers. So some interesting guys there. I think what I'm going to do here is, so taking a few shots at the receiver position. So first, I'm going to take a shot on a guy that I can pair with one of my quarterbacks, and it's not a Raven. It is Michael Thomas. This late, you're just taking a shot on a guy to see what he has left, and he is an upside guy that I think, could be the Michael Thomas of old with one of the best quarterbacks he's had in a while. If not, it's a later pick here, so I've got safety at the receiver position ahead. But I can get a nice upside shot there with Michael Thomas, especially with Derek Carr kind of pairing them up. If he's not, then like I said, I've got Amari Cooper, Godwin, and Lockett. That'll be solid. But if Michael Thomas is the Michael Thomas of old, he could easily push in there and be one of my stalwart starting receivers. So got him locked in, and 3 picks left for me, 4 for you. And you're making that one now.
So I like how we're kind of bobbing and weaving a little bit here. You're targeting wide receivers. I'm targeting running backs now. Because I targeted
both of us out.
Yeah, it does. It does. So nice working with you.
You're right.
It worries me a little bit because I, got a little bit of a weight, and that means I'm grabbing my 3rd quarterback and my 1st tight end with my final 2 picks, which is kind of scary. But I'm seeing Khalil Herbert here that I want, and I'm seeing Rashad Penny that I want. Herbert is a dart throw at that Chicago team. Not the lead back last year, but he started becoming more relevant in the offense last year. He's the one that he's the running back in the room that's familiar with the team, familiar with the offense, with the line, the coaching staff, yada, yada, yada. So I think he's got the best shot, 3-way battle. I don't think Foreman's going to take it away from him. If you want to throw a dart on Foreman because it's a late round pick, that's fine. I think it's either going to be Herbert or the running back that I can't think of, Roshan Johnson, the rookie. But Clear was there before, so he is the one I want. We're going to lock him in, and we'll see if Penny gets back to me, and he goes immediately. So Penny goes, Dalton Schultz, Gabe Davis, and then Chika Okonkwo goes. So double tight ends are going off the board now, which makes me nervous. So I'm going to go pull the trigger on Greg Dulcich now because I don't think he's going to get back to me. I'm happy with him as my breakout. I'm going to have to sit and think about Chig a little bit with DeAndre Hopkins coming. That offense kind of scares me. Like, I know we haven't talked about Treylon Burks in a while, like actually talked about him. I know I was high on him earlier in the year, but I've faded off of him. Mostly as I, trying to embrace more of the stats say if you're not good in your first year, you never make it. No, regardless of it's injury related or not. So that kind of points to Burks being bad. I've been trying to embrace that a little bit. Now with the Hopkins news, that makes it even worse. So for an offense that doesn't pass a lot, they support Derrick Henry, they supported AJ Brown, and at times supported like Jonnu Smith. I don't remember if Delaney Walker was pre Tannehill and AJ Brown, I think. So he wouldn't be relevant, but they've never supported two options consistently. Like Jonnu at best was inconsistent. He would, he could finish at tight end like 8 or 9, but he was inconsistent doing it. So I really don't think that now with, Tannehill being older, not looking as good, Henry being older, that suddenly they're going to support two of these three guys. And I'm assuming it's Hopkins. So I don't know. I have to think on it more. That conversation does not put Chig in a good light. But, all the breakout potential in the world to him, maybe he's a good buy opportunity in Dynasty because, Hopkins isn't going to be there long term. Kmet I still like as like a post-hype sleeper kind of guy. But Dulcich, I like more. I trust the offense, the coaching staff more. Quarterback is pretty similar, I guess, from a trust standpoint. They're different reasons, but they kind of even out. So I'm going to lock in Dulcich, get my tight end finally, and then we'll deal with the other positions with my last two picks. You are up.
All right. And I will say, had I not gone Thomas, Khalil Herbert was someone I was thinking about just to load up at the position. So solid choice there on Mr. Khalil Herbert. So there's not a ton of running backs that I like. There's still some rookies that you can take a shot on a little later. But at this stage, I'm just going to try to kind of pepper in the wide receiver position. So I'm going to take a shot on a Baltimore wide receiver. And you can go, really any of the three. It's crazy that they're all still here, actually. Actually, at this point now, I'm second guessing if I just wait around, since I assume there's a good chance one of the three would be there. But I kind of want to go with the rookie and take a shot on Zay Flowers here. Upside shot. We still got the Rashad Bateman. Still some uncertainty. He's been sidelined. I think earlier in the offseason with an injury. You imagine that he's going to be back, but you don't know. And Zay Flowers, is just kind of more of an upside shot here at this point. So we'll go ahead and lock in Zay Flowers, get another pairing for my quarterbacks. After Zay, Juju goes, Jameson Williams, Brian Robinson, Jamal Williams, Cole Kmet, Elijah Moore, Dalton Kincaid, Samaje Perine, Damian Harris, Odell Beckham, Kobe Myers, and Tyler Algier. So crazy, Bateman's still there too. Looking at wide receivers, Cortland Sutton, interesting option this late in the game. More of an upside. Once again, another kind of upside shot. Alan Lazard is another one that I feel like I've been rising on a little bit. It seems like he slept on because I feel like there's really not a ton of competition behind Garrett Wilson. So he could be a really interesting option, especially familiarity with Aaron Rodgers. Beyond him, Sky Moore, maybe there, some interesting options, but nothing kind of over the top. We look at the running back, Devon Achane, Elijah Mitchell, McKinnon, Kendry Miller. So a couple of the rookie running backs are interesting. Miller, Bigsby, kind of taking a shot on one of those. Jerick McKinnon is another interesting option in Kansas City. He re-signs there. We really don't know what's going to go down between all of them, but he seems like a solid option. It's tough. None of the rookies are really screaming out, so I would take a shot here on a veteran guy and a Jerick McKinnon and see kind of how those shares, are divvied up. If we see that the season starts again and it is Isaiah Pacheco and he's, getting all the work, it could be okay. Maybe they're fully moving through to him, but it seems like they just rotate so much. So you'll know what you get early on. Going to go ahead and grab a Jerick McKinnon here, get a fifth depth running back, and it moves on to you.
So let's see. Both team after me only have two quarterbacks. Most actually only have two quarterbacks. They all only have two quarterbacks. That's interesting.
Yeah, no backups yet.
But I'm not seeing quarterbacks that I really want as my, like Bryce Young, rookie, don't want. CJ Stroud, rookie, don't want. Pickett, I don't see the upside. Hal, not interested. Lance, not the starter. Mac, not interested. Purdy, okay. Purdy's okay. Garoppolo as a 3 is probably okay. Ritter, not really interested in. Who else? Tannehill, no. Baker, no. Like there's no one except for Stafford and Murray that I'm interested in. Both have question marks, and Kyler's got the upside. So I'm drafting Kyler Murray first. He's going to be my backup quarterback.
Yeah.
It does not look like they're going to be drafting backup quarterbacks in this league, which is interesting. Elijah Mitchell goes. A-Chain, Kendre Miller, Deontay Foreman is here with my last pick. I kind of wish I went with Rashad Penny earlier and then I could get Roshan Johnson here and have the same combo just without Khalil, because I'm not loving everything else that's here. Jalen Warren is here. That's interesting. At wide receiver, Bateman. This is a great value on Bateman.
Yeah, it really is.
But the injury risk, that's his issue now? Injury? I forget. Injury?
Yeah, he had an injury like last year, and then I think that he was just sidelined with an injury in like minicamp.
Yeah. Slow to recover or something. It's Dobbins that's having the contract thing. I'm mixing them up.
Yeah.
So that could be a big win, but kind of worrisome. Cortland Sutton, though, here in the 14th round seems like a big win. We got looking at the guys around him. Lazard could be interesting, but you got Thielen, Boyd, Darnell Mooney, Rondell Moore, Sky Moore, Rashee Rice. Like Cortland Sutton to me is the one that stands out. So he is the one I'm drafting. That seems like an incredible value with my last pick.
Yeah, and it was Sutton or Lazard for me. So I think both of those are good shots here. They should be the twos on their team this late in the draft. Obviously older quarterback, so some uncertainty with the quarterback, throw into them, but both should be the twos there. And then, hopefully with Lazard here, he's got some familiarity with the quarterback with Rodgers. So I'm going to lock in Allen Lazard here as my last pick. Rashad Bateman goes next. Michael Meyer, Tyler Higbee, Sky Moore, and Adam Thielen and Tyler Boyd to round out the draft.
Beautiful. So 10-team Superflex in the books. Will with the 7th pick. I'm with the 8th. Will, you want to run down your team?
Yeah, so we've got Lamar Jackson and Derek Carr as my quarterbacks. Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Rashad White, and Jerick McKinnon at running back. Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, Tyler Lockett, Michael Thomas, Zay Flowers, and Allen Lazard at wide receiver. And Dallas Goedert at tight end. Pretty good with this team. Obviously, weighted a bit on receiver, so not a ton of, big names, but I think all solid guys that I can kind of rotate across those two positions, given that, banking on my 3 big running backs to hold down the running backs and flex positions, my quarterbacks, on the super flex, and Goddard as a top, 5, hopefully tight end. So pretty happy with the way the team shook out.
So my team, quarterbacks, Justin Fields, Tua, and Kyler Murray. At running back, we got Christian McCaffrey, Travis Etienne, Jahmyr Gibbs, Khalil Herbert. And at the wide receiver position, Olave Ayuk, Marquise Hollywood Brown, Jordan Addison, Deontay Johnson, and Cortland Sutton. And at tight end, we got Greg Dulcich. This might be my favorite team I've drafted this year.
Oh.
And I might feel that way because it could be an absolute disaster. Like if Olave and Carve don't gel, Gibbs is really just second fiddle to Montgomery and does third down work. The quarterback situation in San Francisco could sink Ayuk. Hollywood could be sunk by Kyler not playing. Addison could have a slow start. Pickett could continue to suck. Like there's a lot of problems with Team Herbert. Could just not be the one. This team could absolutely implode. But I don't think it would. I like what I have done here. I probably like it because I'm in the 8th pick and managed to get Christian McCaffrey. That
helps.
Yeah, that's probably a big part of that. But, for a Superflex team and me really not liking to go quarterback, like 2 quarterbacks early, I'm happy with how it played out. Now, if all these teams drafted backup quarterbacks, which you would think they would, that's going to mess things up a little bit. But it's only going to create more value. Like instead of getting Jordan Addison at the 908, I could have got him at the 1003 or something like that. Like it would push people down. So I'm pretty happy with this. I'm surprised, but I am pretty happy with it. That's something else.
Yeah. And I think 10-team league definitely helps too. When you have less teams, it's going to bolster out the rosters. But yeah, regardless, not bad. It'd be interesting to see if in a real Superflex league, a lot more backups go, backup quarterbacks.
Yeah, definitely. And taking a look, I wanted to remind myself to look at Team 10 because they waited a while to get their first quarterback, and that team I do not like. Richardson and Love as your quarterbacks seems like a really big problem. I mean, it could be really high upside. I mean, Richardson does something, it could be huge, but like.
Yeah, I mean, you said you went, the double Miami receiver, but Jamar Chase, Hill, and Waddle. I mean, you say Jamar Chase, Hill, and Olave. Like that is a pretty solid receiver.
It is.
Brees and Miles is good enough running backs. Good to really good, but yeah, the quarterbacks. It's just I don't know. I mean, I probably would have rather had Derek Carr and instead of Debo, maybe Derek Carr and Anthony Richardson's a better mix. But
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like if you swapped out Love with like Stafford, I'd probably like it more. But Richardson and Love just seems like a messy situation. But I mean, hey, play the game, and that's what happens sometimes. That's why we mock, right?
Yeah, this is why we mock.
Beautiful. Well, hey, that is going to wrap up today's draft. Tune in next week. We'll be back to a 12-team. Maybe we won't do PPR. Maybe we'll do standard or something.
Yeah, switch it up.
Yeah, and then we'll go from there. So we'll see you next week. And until then, trust your board.